Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Tennessee Titans have a lot of ways they could go with their number one overall pick. Also, one of the greatest coaches of all time has an uncertain future. And speaking of uncertain futures, Joel Embiid is hurt again and the 76ers are in freefall.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Tennessee Titans have some massive decisions ahead, particularly with the number one overall selection in the 2025 draft. Here to talk about that with me as Combine Week gets rolling along is Tyler Rowland, the host of Locked On Titans. And Tyler, number one pick, that's a big deal for the Tennessee franchise, especially when there are multiple different ways that they could go with this pick, whether it's drafting one of those top rookie quarterbacks. Maybe they go with one of the star prospects at other positions. But with the Combine Week kicking off here, we know that some of the top prospects will do drills, others will not. What are your expectations for the Titans as they head into this week and look at their next crop of talent?
Well, you would hope at this stage in the game that the evaluation has been created. I think the big thing about the combine for me is confirmation, not creation. Your opinion of the player has already been established based on the film, which is ultimately what's most important in this, dish that we're cooking up here. The most important ingredient in the dish is the film. And then it's not like these teams have zero intel on these players. Their area scouts have been watching these players for multiple years. You start to build an evaluation of a player before they're ever draft eligible in theory, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of it is we think this about the player based on the tape. We need to confirm that or disprove that in the meetings with the player. So I think that's ultimately what the most important thing for the Titans at the combine is over the on-field stuff. But certainly when you talk about breaking ties, you talk about historical data comparisons, defensive ends that have this three cone with this broad jump and this length, that turns into a good player this percent of the time. So it's all about confirmation for the Titans at this stage. I think at this point, they probably have a very good idea of who the player is, what they can do on the field. So making sure that you confirm everything that you think or disprove everything that you think will be the key for the Titans and probably most teams as well.
And it's such a curious thing because I think each team approaches it differently. Some teams put so much stock into those drills. Other people do use it, like you said, Tyler, as that confirmation. How historically have the Titans done it? Because obviously there are new decision makers in the building now, so it's changed, especially with the fact that this number one overall pick, that is a massive decision. So what has history been, and what do you think it will be this year for them? Do you think they will take your advice of using it for confirmation?
Well, the Tennessee Titans, if you look at their history, even just while being the Titans, not even going back to the Oilers history, they've tried every other way. I mean, there's the Jake Lockers and the Marcus Mariotas of the world, the Vince Youngs, who they tried to pick high in the draft to fix their quarterback problem. But the Titans have also gone the opposite direction. Now, the circumstances dictate what they would do, but in 2016, they traded back from the number one overall pick with the Los Angeles Rams in the Jared Goff draft. So the Titans have done it multiple ways here, but I think what we look at is their new general manager, Mike Borgonzi, comes in, and how has he seen it done in the past? And what I would say is you look at Mike Borgonzi, who came from Kansas City, and what did they do? They traded for Alex Smith to get a competent quarterback, and then they made their move up in the draft to get Patrick Mahomes eventually when they identified the guy. Well, you look at Chad Brinker, who is the Titans president of football operations. He came from Green Bay. What are they known for? Drafting quarterbacks in the first round and letting them sit. What did Patrick Mahomes do his first year? He sat. So I think the Titans' history is what it is, but looking at what Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker have been involved with, they haven't been guys who rush to get quarterback. They've looked to get the veteran, keep the veteran around, and then get a rookie that they can bring along slowly. So with that in mind, I think that the Titans would probably stray away from taking quarterback, but if they're blown away in some of these meetings at the combine, maybe it changes their mind. I would be worried if their mind was changed by an interview and swayed by that. But at the same time, that is what this is all about. So I think from the Titans' perspective, you can go off the history, but really you look at Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker, the guys in charge, and their previous organizations where they learned have been more patient at quarterback than the number one overall pick.
And you mentioned them trading back in that Jared Goff draft. If the Titans do decide to move out of the number 1 pick this year, you would assume that the team would want to come up for a quarterback like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders to jump those. There are other talents available there. Do you think there's a possibility, Tyler, the Titans could go to the combine, fall in love with a prospect that maybe isn't a quarterback? I mean, you can go get that guy maybe at 6, 7, 8. You get a haul of picks for the future, and all of a sudden you now have other assets to use because you went to this combine and you saw how a guy performed and you did fall in love and they got that confirmation.
Well, I think that is what's going to happen. Ultimately, I think that through this stage, as I was mentioning earlier, the Titans have their intel. They have the film on these players. So I think some people say that, everything's open. They haven't decided anything. And I'm not saying they have decided anything, but you have a hard time telling me that Tennessee Titans general manager Mike Borgonzi doesn't close his eyes at night knowing which player he believes he should pick. Like, I'm sorry. There's no way that these guys have been following these guys for their college career, watching the tape, all of that. The Titans just did no daylight February. They called it with their scouting process. You don't come out of no daylight February without an idea of which player you think you like. And I think that human beings have confirmation bias, and the Titans will find what they need to find this week to justify what they want to do.
You can stay up to date on the Tennessee Titans by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Titans on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. You're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, Greg Popovich's future with the Spurs is uncertain. Before we get to that, we witnessed the top 10 showdown in college basketball on Monday night. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get internet than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Tuesday night has the game everyone is talking about on the docket. Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers are 8-point favorites at home versus the Dallas Mavericks. Elsewhere in the evening, the Cavs are 6.5-point favorites on the road in Orlando. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make everyone want more. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. The Houston Cougars and Texas Tech Red Raiders faced off in a top 10 college basketball showdown on Monday night.
69-61 in a dogfight of a road game. Houston improves to 9-0 on the road, undefeated on the road thus far. Just one more road game to go, one true road game to go. That is, I would argue the Big 12 tournament's kind of an Iowa State, Kansas State kind of home game, but that's not here nor there. This is tremendous. We got a bunch of people commenting already in the show notes here. So much to say about this one. I want to talk about Milos a lot. Milos Uzan, career high 22 points, or at least a Houston career high. I don't know what the Oklahoma career high was. I just too excited to look that up right now. Big time performance out of Milos in this one as we talk about this live, breaking it down after the game.
Denver Nuggets earned a road win over the Pacers.
Tony East here with Locked On Pacers on the floor here in Gainbridge Fieldhouse where the Pacers, like that right there, got mopped up by the Denver Nuggets. A 9-point win for Nikola Jokic and company. The story of this game, the possession battle was ugly for the Pacers. They got destroyed on the glass. Nuggets scooping up a bunch of offensive rebounds and dominating the defensive boards in this game, plus 17 turnovers for the Pacers. Just gave Denver too many chances. They're already the second most efficient offense by true shooting percentage this season. You can't keep up if you give that team extra chances. Pacers didn't shoot well to make up for that. You give the Nuggets extra chances, you just lose, especially when those extra chances result in jumpers going in from role players. Aaron Gordon hit jumpers. Christian Brown hit floaters. Zeke Naji hit jumpers. The Pacers didn't even really play that bad. Tyrese Halliburton, 15 assists. Miles Turner had 23 points. Ben Shepherd had a nice game off the bench. They had some stuff go their way, but not quite enough. Their first loss since the All-Star break. Well, much more on Locked On Pacers.
An anonymous NFL team has submitted a rule proposal to ban the tush-push quarterback sneak, according to reports on Monday. Per ESPN, NFL owners could vote on the proposal next month at the annual league meeting in Palm Beach, Florida, unless the team decides to withdraw its proposal. If the proposal goes to a vote, 24 of the NFL's 32 owners would have to vote in favor for it to pass. The Philadelphia Eagles and Buffalo Bills have combined to run 163 tush pushes, gaining a first down and scoring on 87% of those tries.
Hall of Fame coach Greg Popovich's future with the San Antonio Spurs is uncertain. Locked On Spurs host Jeff Garcia discusses the latest.
I guess all season long, I kind of been going back and forth on whether or not I thought he was going to return. And we heard inklings that was kind of what he was hoping to do. And it made sense. Obviously, Pop's going to want to get himself back as quickly as he possibly can. My initial reaction was just that it kind of checked out. After you hear about Victor and the fact that he's done for the season, it makes sense not to put not to over prioritize getting him back this season, Popovich. Because obviously there's still a lot up in the air with his health and the kind of stress that coaching a young team brings. And so in my head, I'm thinking, the Spurs are kind of not necessarily punting. They still got great pieces that, have potential to continue to win games. But I think that they're going to kind of hope for a fresh start for both Victor and Popovich. And it kind of made sense that, that news would come out and then just kind of defer to next season, if at all.
Yeah. My reaction to it was, I'm not surprised. I really wasn't surprised because there was a lot of scuttlebutt on Media Row, leading up to yesterday or a couple of days ago. I knew that a lot of people were saying, it's kind of doubtful. I don't think he will. The Spurs, every time you asked them, whether it be R.C. Buford or Mitch Johnson, what do? They stuck to the PR press release, which was, we hope to get him back. He's doing well. And that's all he said. So I was in France. R.C. Buford just reiterated the press conference. Mitch Johnson just says, hope for the best. So, yeah, again, if the report is true, and I'm not kind of cast down on that, but if it is, then it just sucks that he's going to go out like this. And this is not how you expected the Hall of Fame coach to go out. Look, it happens. People get strokes. You get sick. I get sick. My family has the history of getting elderly, the family members getting strokes. Everybody, it happens. I get that. But you kind of wanted him to have a last hurrah, maybe coach one more game. Who knows? Maybe that's still in the cards. Maybe they let him come back and sit on that sideline one more time. But we shall see. But, another reaction I had, man, I want to get your thoughts on this is the impact of the players. Because Chris Paul, it was Popovich that had to sit down with them and, convince him to sign with the Spurs. Wemby, I can't believe I'm getting coached by Popovich. The list goes on and on and on. I think this is going to not only hurt the players, this season, but could, I want to say hurt the rebuild, but I want to say a pause. More like something like maybe you think that free agents would be, who's coaching this team? I think it puts them in limbo right now.
Absolutely. I don't think you're far off. As far as the current players, I think they kind of understand that, they were drawn to San Antonio for a reason. And, they're not going to be quick to say, well, I want out if he's not here. But at the same time, to your point, free agents definitely would have been drawn to be playing next to Victor Wembanyama under Greg Popovich. And so, if you lose the latter piece of that allure to come to San Antonio, it definitely complicates things. And I think it's a matter of, whenever they figure out, if this is it for Greg Popovich, whenever they figure out who's going to take over for him, it's going to be a matter of whether or not these players, the free agents or the stars that would originally have wanted to play, whether or not they can buy into the system that the new coach is going to bring, or whether or not they think that they'll be a good fit next to Victor Wembanyama, regardless of who's coaching. Sometimes you get players like that who really prefer a certain style of coaching, and that could deter a couple of players for sure. But, you'd like to think that, they're more committed to playing next to Victor and bringing their talents to a young team as opposed to just, holding out for a certain coach.
Yeah, he's been coaching on sideline from the Spurs for 29 seasons. 29 seasons. That's incredible. He was the old, or I guess technically is, because he's still, Mitch Johnson's interim head coach. So remember, those wins and losses go to Pop's records. He is, the longest tenured head coach, especially the NBA, but across the major sports in the United States. And it looks like, it looks like this could be it. He's 76 years old. It's unprecedented. You never really saw an individual go this long coaching in the NBA. He'd Brown did it to the 70s. I believe Jerry Sloan did it as well. But look, health challenges, they get in the way. Your life shifts focus. What does Pop always say, Matt? It's just basketball. It's just basketball. There's bigger things in life than just basketball. He would always, Pete Popovich during the NBA, as heard the Spurs dynasty run, he'd always say, we're just talking about putting our orange ball in the hole. That's all he would think. That's all we're talking about. So and then he preaches that too, not just with the media, but with his players too, life events, world events, always highlighting that. So I could definitely see him, if I'm going to have that mantra, then I got to put real life things in front of me into perspective. And that is his health. He wants to live as long life as he can. He has grandkids, he has kids. Sure. And I think he'll be around the organization, some capacity, but we shall see. But technically, by the way, Matt and I want to make it very clear. The Spurs have not put anything official on their end. Okay. So nothing official out of San Antonio Spurs yet. So let's make that very clear. But yeah, I think it shook a lot of Spurs fans. I saw on X, Matt's fans saying, how can this season get any worse? One of the fans said, don't bother me for a few days. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And the season started off with promise and hope. Wemby's second year, Chris Paul's arrival. At that time, early in the season, the rumors of De'Aaron Fox possibly coming to San Antonio. It was exciting. And here we are, with looks like another down season. I don't think there's going to be a play-in berth anymore. I don't think there's going to be a playoff berth. All they're going to do is just move forward. And I think that's what something Popovich would want everybody to do. Just move forwards. All right, so there's our quick reaction to the news. But when we get back, we're going to be looking at Mitch Johnson. Is he a lock? Is he a lock for the Spurs' next head coach? So in other words, just removing the label of interim head coach.
You can stay up to date all year on the San Antonio Spurs by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Spurs on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Joel Embiid has been sidelined again.
Philadelphia 76ers star Joel Embiid might need surgery on his re-injured knee. Locked On 76ers host Kayla Santiago and Keith Pompey discuss Philly's options as their frustrations with the former MVP grow.
The 76ers, a tough loss to the Nets, but the big highlighting factor from that is the fact that the 76ers went on a run without Joel Embiid. He was really, really bad from beyond the arc. He was benched in the fourth quarter, and the 76ers almost coming back in that game. They do fall 105-103. I mean, Keith, I do want to highlight, without getting too much into looking ahead on Joel Embiid, but what happened in that game there, because you look at missing all 3-point attempts. They go on a run without him, and this team is just playing better without him now. Now, yes, they said there was a little bit of knee swelling, and he, went down a little bit at the end of that third quarter, but this team was just playing better without him, and it takes me back to when he wasn't on the court, and Tyrese Maxey was also going on that run. So right now, we've talked about it a time or few, saying the 76ers are better with Joel Embiid on the floor in the past, but now he's starting to become a little bit of a liability with the way that he's unable to play at his full potential.
Yeah, he's a major liability right now. And, let's face it, he's not playing at the level that he was playing at the previous two seasons. When he was healthy those seasons, he was the most unguardable player in the NBA. Right now you got guys like Nick Claxton is like, oh, fresh meat. Let's go drive the lane. Looks like a layup line. You know what I mean? Like, they're just embarrassing the guy. And, with that being said, it's kind of like, Nick Nurse had a choice to make. He had a decision to make. Like, you know what? Right now we're struggling. We lost 6 in a row, 8 out of 9 games. Do I try to win this game, or do I worry about this guy's ego? And what he did is he decided to go with the latter. I mean, he decided to go with the former and tried to win it. And you know, I think that led to why Embiid declined to talk, you know, a lot of other things. But you know what, you got to commend the coach because, I mean, let's face it, everyone who watched that game looked at it and was saying, what's wrong with Joel? He's not the same guy. And with that being said, Kayla, we talked about this for a while, and I don't want to get on a tangent, but we said this time would come where Joel kept putting it out there when he said, like, hey, to Lisa Salters, that, hey, I may need surgery. Then he didn't back away from it when I asked him the next day. And then on Thursday, he comes back and says, you know what? I may need surgery again. So now what's happening? Now they're considering surgery and possibly shutting Joel Embiid down for the rest of the season. Who knows what happens, but they're considering it. But let's face it, at this particular time, he can't help him. He's just not, he doesn't have the legs, and it's hard to say it, but he's been a liability out there for the 76ers.
If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we are here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what can we expect from the NFL Combine? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.